Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order, let me get my correct agenda. Call to order this meeting of the Cunningham Township Board for Monday, October 16th, 2023. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu, Mr. Evans,
Here.
Ms. Hersey, Ms. Colasetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Wilkin, Mr. Quisenberry,
Here.
Mayor Marlin,
Here.
Ms. Chenoweth,
Present. Next
Luana, she's not here.
Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. I don't believe we have any minutes to consider this time. Are there any additions to the agenda? Public participation is next. There's no one in the audience. We'll move on to committee to verify bills for the town fund and general assistance fund.
Let me turn this on. So in the last month, we had $44,595.95 in town fund expenditures. We had $77,573.16 in the general assistance fund, and the total was $122,169.11. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the town bills before going on to the supervisor's memo, which I emailed to you this afternoon.
Any questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve the town fund and GA fund?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jaya, seconded by James. Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
That motion passes. We'll move on to reports of officers.
So in the supervisor's memo, I just want to show that we've stayed pretty steady with the general assistance. So we're at 61 participants, down from 64. I do know that we had a number of openings this past week, so I expect that to bounce back up. We do track homeless participants carefully. We're at 9, down from 12 in August. And as you can see, we got 26 applications, up from 17. I know that we had our intern, who's now our staff member, Brittany Tootin, present to you on the education and employment track. And we've been doing a pretty deep dive in our general assistance cases. In our program structure, we are required to provide general assistance to, at minimum, people with disabilities who have active SSI, SSDI cases. That's what City of Champaign Township does. We've also offered what used to be called the Community Work Program, and it's now the Education and Employment Track. And so we've been doing a deep dive. We've done an 18-month looking at a lot of data, looking at that. I would say it's been difficult for a while to have a success in that program, as I think was evidenced in the report presented to you. I'm just giving you a heads up that and I will be most likely presenting on this in November, looking to make changes that improve those program outcomes. And I think just the short version of the story is there's a lot of money and services for workforce development in the community that are really good at what they do. We have both partner at RBC and Parkland College, adult education. There's many different services being provided, and in some ways what we're doing feels like a duplication of those services without the same level of expertise in that area. And so we've really been kind of looking at where we may want to invest more deeply in meeting people's material needs. In particular, the Education and Employment Track has a lot of folks who circle in and out of Salt Lake, and are dealing with some substance abuse issues. That's one component of it. It's not the only component. And so we're really looking at harm reduction in that space, as well as partners that would be best positioned. So just giving you a heads up if you all, have I know that I am the sole authority of general assistance. I also really work collaboratively with everyone, our town board and our staff, and so wanted to let you know we're having that conversation. But I do think that we'll see some changes in general assistance in that arena. And with that, those changes, I'd like to really deepen and increase support for people with disabilities. And I'd like to continue to provide some level of support for able-bodied folks who are out of work. So we're looking to see what that will look like. I think the only other thing, we are, I wanted to show you our rental assistance application flow. And so April we were at 26 and we've been between 50 and 65 since. I recently looked at the unemployment data. I don't know if you look at Fred very often. This is like what I do in my spare time. So I look at Fred and I looked at unemployment data that is tracked, and we are seeing an increase in unemployment locally. So if you look just at Champaign County, you'll see that there is a rise in unemployment that's pretty precipitous. And I was trying to get to what is going on with rental assistance and utility assistance, and why are we're not seeing the same kind of ebbs and flows. So that I would encourage you to kind of look at some of the data points around our community as it impacts the most vulnerable. Our rental assistance budget, so we've spent 42% in just the first 3 months. I'm not particularly concerned about that at this point because we have city ARPA funds and some county ARPA funds. So I'm not having a budgetary concern, but I do expect us to exceed our budget. For rental assistance, I think we'll come under in general assistance and over in rental assistance, and I think we've seen that for a while. And I think it's because housing is the place of greatest need. And frankly, I like being able to pay people's rent off directly. It's very clear and clean. General assistance is sometimes less clear in that way. So I'm just grabbed a couple other things. I highlighted utility support for you. We supported 58 households in September. We do believe that starting in November, we'll see in October, with the beginnings of LIHEAP opening, we'll see reprieve, and in October, we'll see a lot more. And I do know that RBC is pursuing a couple of different funding options that would really help. And they have announced that they will keep LIHEAP open through the summer, and I think that was in response to some of the conversations we had with RBC about the hardship of the cost of utilities right now over the summer, especially with the heat wave that we saw. The other thing I want to note is that, and I have reached out to both our senator and state representative about an anticipated work requirement that kicks in for SNAP at the end of the month. I can't find any information to say that it will be otherwise, but I know that the state of Illinois has not been happy about that federal mandate. So I'm trying to get some information about what that's going to look like before the end of the month. So just wanted to give you a heads up. We did have a healing harvest. We had about 100 people show up this last weekend. It was very cold and windy, and we still had 100 people show up based on the number of meals that we provided meal tickets, one per person for. So I was really proud of that piece, and we will be releasing a video of the performance, the Solidarity Gardens Voices, that was produced as part of a grant in that. And then I'm actually just going to start screenshotting what it looks like to try to get an appointment at the DMV. If you look at the last page of the supervisor's memo, every couple of days I go to the DMV at different times of the day and I screenshot to see if there are any appointments. There has to be a solution, because this means that homeless residents have to go to Rantoul to get an ID, and the DMV here is largely empty, and that's a problem. So if you have not spoken with the Secretary of State or your local representatives about this, I would ask you to do so. I am, at this point, I'll be talking to the Continuum of Care about it at the Executive Committee on Wednesday. And I'm thinking about organizing a sign-on letter of local leaders who would sign on for Julius's office. And so you may be seeing that, and I would request your support in signing on, that they allow walk-ins. And I would say for homeless seniors and people with disabilities, I don't want to just carve off the homeless, because I actually think that those three populations all need access. Happy to answer any questions you have about the supervisor's memo.
Just want to check to see if Mary Alice has phoned in. I'm hearing crackling from above. Are you there, Mary Alice? Okay, not yet. All right. Doesn't appear to have any questions. Thank you. We'll move on to the quarterly financial report.
So I'm going to start with the town fund if you want to pull up. Let's see how it is in your packet. Maybe I should do it. Let's see. Okay. So started with, supervisor. So in your packet, it starts with supervisor. Good news is essentially, and I've highlighted this, that the supervisor is spent at 7% of my budget and the assessor is spent at 17%. In part, that's because there's certain large expenditures like insurance that haven't come and hit the books yet. But generally feeling good about where we're at in terms of staying within our budget. If we did look at the general assistance fund, which is underneath that, you will see that we are at 23%, 23.5. It is mostly grant driven, so I would expect that we would stay on target and we'd be at about 25% at this point, which we are. You will see that utility assistance is way up. We're at 222%. We do our best to anticipate what expenses are going to look like. But you also see that with general assistance, we're at 19%, which is a pretty large chunk of change in that pot. And housing assistance is about on target. I will note that our angel donor fund we already have brought in 163% of anticipated for the year. So yay, Urbana. Appreciate all the donations that help us fill gaps that we cannot and do not anticipate necessarily with our grants. I'm happy to answer any questions you have from the two financial reports for this quarter.
Seeing no questions, move on to unfinished business. I don't believe there is any. And next is new business.
New business. So first, we have approval of the finance and accounting policies for Cunningham Township. Essentially, there's a change in law that requires us to shift our accounting policies to comply with new regulations at the level of the state. And we've gotten input from our auditor. We had accounting policies. There's certain pieces that need to be updated or clarified. So you'll see in this our capital asset policy. You'll see our town fund balance policy, our investment policy, and our outstanding check policy. And so what I would ask essentially is for a motion for you to confirm these policies, and then if approved, I will share that with our auditor. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the policies.
Let's take a motion first, and then we'll address questions. Is there a motion to approve the 4 policies provided?
I'll move to approve the 4 policies.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Chandra, seconded by Jaya.
I should just mention that a number of the policies, they've all been approved by, they've been reviewed by our auditor prior to coming to you. We also have an accountant who helped us, is our accountant, who has helped us with those pieces. So it has gone through auditor and accountant review, as well as our finance director.
Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
That motion passes. Next item is resolution number T 2023-10-009R, which is a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an MOU and subrecipient agreement with Champaign County Healthcare Consumers to provide emergency housing and supportive services. That's EHTH funding for fiscal year '24. Do you have a report?
So, I don't know if you wanted a motion or not. This essentially is a pass-through grant that we received from the state of Illinois through IDHS. Healthcare Consumers was written into the grant after we received notice of the grant in early September. It actually started September 1st. We received notice around that time. We've been working to make sure that we have a MOU and subrecipient grant agreement that align with the grant terms. So that's what you see before you. Essentially, they will operate 2 hotel rooms for medically fragile individuals referred by Cunningham Township as part of our wait list. So they're extending our hotel rooms with theirs, and the reason we specifically want them as a partner is because we are working with several folks who are very, very medically precarious and fragile, and Healthcare Consumers has a relationship with Carle Hospital providers, case social workers, et cetera, even the president, in ways that we don't currently have. And we reached out to them to ask if in those situations where they are case managing their Social Security disability cases, where there's a specific medical fragility, that we would refer folks. So we will essentially continue, it will be under our grant. We will train and manage the reporting of the grant, and this basically allows us to pass through money for a quarter full-time equivalent and 2 hotel rooms plus $2,000 of supplies to Healthcare Consumers.
Is there a motion? James?
I'll move approval resolution number T-2023-10-009R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an MOU and subrecipient agreement with Champaign County Healthcare Consumers to provide emergency housing and supportive services.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by James, seconded by Chandra. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry?
Yes.
That motion passes. Next item is resolution number T-2023-10-010R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an MOU and subrecipient agreement with Channing Murray Foundation to provide food for Bridge to Home participants, EHTH funding, FY24.
Great, so this is a similar situation, except it's a vendor relationship. The Channing Murray Foundation, we approached them first as our Bucket Brigade partner. As we expand food delivery service under the terms of our EHTH grant, we are required to provide, I'm just pulling it up now, we're required to provide 1 meal per day to people staying in the hotel and access to meals for those who have access to the kitchen. We actually hope to provide 2 meals a day. And we think that with our budget leveraged with Channing Murray Foundation, which has a relationship with the food bank, they already provide 1 meal a day, but it's very shelf-stable food. And so we asked for additional money that will pay for some more fresh. We also asked for money for air fryers for every hotel room based on consent of the hotel. And so we now have air fryers, and we'll be able to bring in and soup warming so we can bring in more fresh and healthy food for people while they're staying in a hotel situation. So we feel good about this, and we will, in the end, be serving, 155 people with food assistance.
Any questions? Sharice?
So you're going to provide, or we're going to provide air fryers to the hotels where people are being temporarily housed?
Yeah, with permission of the hotels, we have provided air fryers directly to the participants, and it's theirs for them to keep. So everyone who comes in to our program, which is, with the rotation is about every 4 months, so it's not a frequent occasion, they receive an air fryer or another implement to warm things other than a microwave. And that allows them to have they are not allowed to have a toaster oven or, hot plate or anything, but they are allowed to have an air fryer in their space.
So I guess my question, so for every, I'm just asking for every, and this is for families that are in the hotel room?
Our families are typically in our apartment units. It's very rare that we have families with children in hotels, so it tends to be our medically fragile individuals who are in hotels, and they oftentimes have special dietary needs.
Okay, so I guess my question then is so when they leave, they take the air fryer with them and then we replace the air fryers?
Correct. Yep. We found that to be a better way so that we're not having to deal with who's cleaning the fryer and what the condition of the fryer is. They're very inexpensive.
Okay.
Also, they like having an air fryer when they move into their permanent housing, and it comes along with the housewarming. So almost everyone who leaves our program moves into permanent housing, and they typically get a housewarming that helps them furnish their apartment.
Okay.
Any other questions? Could we have a motion?
I'll move resolution number T-2023-10-010R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an MOU and subrecipient agreement with Channing Murray Foundation to provide food for Bridge to Home participants EHTH funding FY24.
Second.
Moved by Chandra, seconded by James. Further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry?
Yes.
That motion passes. Next item is resolution number T-2023-10-011R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the Champaign County Bridge to Home, filling gaps in local homeless and housing services. That's with ARPA funds.
Yeah, so this basically allows me to sign an agreement to receive the $350,000 from the county for Bridge to Home. A lot of those dollars are going to help to support our street outreach work and our outreach work generally, although there are other supports that kind of help to fill gaps in some of the other grants that we brought in. So this won't necessarily be the last grant. I actually have an SMAS grant that we'll be bringing to you, but it's the last, I think, of the big ARPA dollars.
Questions? Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution number T-2023-10-011R, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the Champaign County for Bridge to Home, filling gaps in local homeless and housing services, ARPA funds.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Chandra, seconded by Jaya. Further discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Colacetti?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry?
Yes.
That motion passes. Last item under new business is ordinance number T 2023-10-005, an ordinance levying taxes for all town purposes for the town of Cunningham, Champaign County, Illinois, for the tax year 2023, collectible in 2024.
So this is what we do each year. This year, we're gonna do it a month in advance, so we have a little bit more time for the truth in taxation process. But essentially, we are proposing to levy $2,570,000. That's most likely not what we will actually levy. But if Carl and OSF come back on the tax rolls, this would cover it. And if they come back on the tax rolls and we don't levy it, we lose it. So what you will see eventually is that the extension will be cut down I believe much closer to about 2.2. But I have worked with the assessor to come up with a number that would be appropriate in case, best case scenario for the township.
Questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number T 2023-10-005, an ordinance levying taxes for all town purposes for the town of Cunningham, Champaign County, Illinois, for the tax year 2023, collectible in 2024.
Second.
Moved by J.S., seconded by James. Is there further discussion? James?
I do want to point out, which I think I do every year, that this is something we need to do because the state of Illinois has legislation regarding tax caps. If we do not put this out there at an amount that seems like we're going to raise the taxes a lot, and these properties that have been declared exempt, at least for the time being, come back on the roll, we would not be able to collect against them. It's kind of, I talk to constituents about this all the time. It's confusing. It makes it look like we're doing something that we're not. Tax caps will click in and limit how much we can levy. So we will not be able to levy greater than the percentage that's set by PTEL. But we have to do this to protect ourselves and to be able to take advantage of all the properties that may be taxable sometime in the future.
Thank you for that. Any further comments, discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry?
Yes.
That motion passes. And with no further business before the town board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will take up again at 7 o'clock with a public hearing, and that will be followed by the City of Urbana City Council Committee of the Whole. Thank you.